How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, as always, text Eric, E-R-I-C-K. You can keep up with the show by podcast, the 24/7 stream, get the show notes, follow me around social media. Great time in Salt Lake City. I'll get to later. We have several different developing stories happening as we take to the air live here at noon today. Number one, Daniel Penny in New York City has been found not guilty by the jury in his case. Number two, a person of interest has been detained by police at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania related to the killing of healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Number three, the Department of Justice has charged 25 people with the fentanyl trafficking ring. 14 of the 19 who were arrested late last week are illegal aliens. Let's break these down one by one. First is the Daniel Penny situation. Not guilty. This is the case where Daniel Penny, who is not from New York, happened to be in New York City, was on a train with a group of passengers, and an insane homeless man battling schizophrenia with synthetic marijuana in his body came onto the train and began harassing the passengers and was threatening the passengers and made comments about not wanting to live, among other things. He was clearly menacing. And Daniel Penny, who had been in the military, stepped forward, a man with a chest, to defend the people on the train, put the crazy schizophrenic in a chokehold, and held him down until the train could be stopped and the police arrive. We know now from the trial that when the police got there, the schizophrenic was still alive, but the police didn't want to do resuscitation or anything like that on him because they were afraid of what diseases he might have, among other things. And so they didn't save the man's life, even though he was still alive, and the man died. And then they blamed Daniel Penny. Now, many criminals in New York City have been given slaps on the wrist and let go. Daniel Penny was charged with manslaughter, among other things. It went to the jury last week. The jury on Friday said it was hung, could not agree on the first charge. And the first charge was the aggravated manslaughter charge. The judge dismissed that charge, which surprised everyone that he would dismiss that charge, clearly trying to steer it to a guilty verdict of some kind. And the jury today has said, nope, not guilty of anything. Daniel Penny is a free man. The system, even in New York City, worked. Now, before I get into the other stuff, I just want to say this. The system doesn't always work, but more often than not, it does. And a whole lot of people convinced themselves that Daniel Penny could not get a fair trial in New York City. And New York City jurors have found him not guilty. The system worked as designed. On both sides of the aisle, there is a vested interest in pot stirrers to tell you the system does not work. The system is flawed because the system, the word system, means people, and people are stupid. And so there are a lot of stupid people around this country who are involved in our system of politics and justice, and stupid people do stupid things. But when you put a bunch of Americans in a room, even in New York City, many times common sense still prevails, and in this case, it did. The system failed in that Daniel Penny should have never been charged in the first place. But when you have an aggressively partisan district attorney like Alvin Bragg, who wants to make an example, particularly of a young white man in New York City who kept other people safe, because Alvin Bragg and the progressive leadership does not want people to feel safe and wants people to feel like they must be reliant on the state and not each other to take care of themselves, they corrupt the system. But the jurors, the citizens of the United States on the jury, they did a good thing. The system doesn't always work. The more high profile you are, the worse the system tends to work. Look at the guilty verdict of Donald Trump in that case, so the deck stacked against him by the prosecutors in that case in New York. I actually think that was a terrible decision in New York City. I don't think, based on the law, Trump should have been found guilty in that case, whether you like him or not. I'm just telling you, it's never been done before in that case. And I think that the high profile, the polarizing effects of Donald Trump mattered in that case. In this case, Daniel Penny wasn't a polarizing guy. He was an innocent person on a subway who saw something. And in New York City, they tell you, say something, see something, say something, see something, do something. He did something, and he got in trouble for it. And the jurors made right what the prosecutor got wrong. And Alvin Bragg, I should hope, might one day be thrown out of office. This was a good verdict. The people working in the system got the system to work well. The next story is there's got to be some misreporting in this. I'll read you the sentence where it could be tripped up. You could see a trip up for you as well. A person of interest was nabbed Monday in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, busted possibly trying to use a fake ID at a McDonald's, law enforcement sources said. The man, who sources said is being eyed for the cold-blooded targeted execution in front of a Manhattan hotel last week, allegedly had a manifesto on him when he was taken into custody by police in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He also had a gun silencer, 4 fake IDs, and other items consistent with what authorities were looking for in the case, sources said. Law enforcement was still trying to figure out the man's real identity. He was nabbed on a tip called in to local cops who apprehended him, sources said. The New York Police Department is en route to Altoona, Pennsylvania. Now, this is the part where I think they probably got something wrong. Busted possibly trying to use a fake ID at a McDonald's. You don't have to have an ID for anything in McDonald's, to my knowledge. Now, if he was traveling with traveler's checks, he might possibly have needed to show an ID for some reason, but I can't imagine he would be traveling with traveler's checks because those could be traced to someone. So I'm not sure on all of the details. What we do know for sure is that a man has been detained in Altoona, Pennsylvania, because of suspicions by someone. Again, see something, say something. In New York City, if it's the wrong person, the prosecutor would probably prosecute the person at McDonald's who said something. Even if it was the right person, they could. But nonetheless, this person of interest. Now, here again, assuming this is right from the New York Post, we have someone who had a manifesto on him when taken into custody. This person also had a gun, a silencer or a suppressor, 4 fake IDs, and other items consistent with what authorities were looking for. Now, keep in mind, one of the reports is that the shooter, on the casings of the bullets, for those of you in Rio Linda, a bullet sits inside of what they call a shell or casing, and it is when the explosion happens inside it, where the gunpowder is ignited, the bullet flies out, and the casing, the shell, you see it tossed aside. The casing comes out. This is why in movies, you're idiots if you turn your gun sideways to try to shoot someone, turn it on its side, because the casing is going to go up and it's probably up and back and hit you in the face. You don't do that. I've seen one movie where someone did that, and the casing flew out of the gun. It's searing hot and burned them on their cheek, and it was the most accurate depiction, I think, in a movie. I can't remember which one it was. But you don't do that. Nonetheless, people do. The thing that flies out of the gun, that's not the bullet, that's your casing. And this person etched on it words, the title of an anti-insurance book, from what we are told. some sort of activist. Now, I got to say, you know, and I know that somewhere in this country right now, someone is very furious that the New York Post has picked this person's pronouns because they're referring to him as a he. And you know, and I know that somebody is absolutely furious that they've done this, and the person himself is probably some woke progressive who uses they, them pronouns. We'll find out soon enough the more information we have coming out now. But it does appear that there has been an arrest in this matter. It is a person of interest. They're not using the word suspect, and that's very important here. They're using the word person of interest. They're not using the word suspect. This is from the New York Times separately. Word of a man being held for questioning the killing of Brian Thompson traveled fast through the police department in Manhattan. On the 13th floor, the Detective Bureau Joseph Kinney, the chief of detectives, took calls and spoke with his colleagues before going into his office. The man was in the McDonald's at 407 East Plank Road in Altoona at about 9:15 today when another customer recognized him and called 911. Law enforcement authorities have requested the passenger manifest of a Greyhound bus the man is thought to have taken to Altoona to see if any names match any of the fake IDs that were being carried by the man at the McDonald's. The man who was detained at McDonald's showed the police the same fake New York identification the man believed to be the gunman presented when he checked into a hostel on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Now, here's the complete compiling of what we know. A man is being held for questioning in connection with last week's killing. He's identified based on a tip from a customer at the McDonald's in Altoona. The man had a gun, a silencer, false identification card similar to those believed to be used by the killer in New York. While the man is said to have been in possession of a gun like the one used in the shooting, he's not been arrested or charged. New York police investigators are traveling to Altoona. It's 280 miles from the city. The police have been looking for the gunman since Monday. Over the weekend, they released 2 new images they say showed the suspect, including one of him in the backseat of a taxi on the day of the shooting. They examined thousands of hours of footage from surveillance cameras to follow his course over an 11-day period, started on arrival on a bus that originated in Atlanta on November 24th. They've recovered bullet casings with the scenes of the words depose, deny, and delay written on them, a possible reference to terms used by insurers. Officials recovered a backpack on Friday that they believe the man may have discarded as he was cycling away from the scene. They had yet to publicly confirm if the backpack belonged to the man or contained items of value. The police found Monopoly money in the backpack. Those are the details on that story. That's as much as we know. We'll keep our eye on this as we move forward. Surely someone in Atlanta, the guy came from Atlanta, would recognize the guy. But you know, the hostel where he stayed has come under attack. Activists are now boycotting the hostel on the Upper West Side of Manhattan because they say the hostel narked the guy, reported him to the police, and that he apparently is a good guy. They did a cosplay event in New York this weekend where they encouraged people to dress up like the shooter and were giving awards. They're making this guy some sort of hero. Now, the last story here, while all of this is happening, we have the Daniel Pinney guilty and not guilty verdict. We have this person of interest arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We now have this. In the last hour, the Department of Justice has charged 25 people in a fentanyl trafficking conspiracy in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. 19 of the 25 individuals were arrested on Thursday in an immigration and DEA operation. According to federal law enforcement sources, 14 of the 19 people arrested last week are illegal aliens, mostly from the Dominican Republic. 10 of those illegal aliens were arrested in Boston, a sanctuary city, which voted last week 13-0 to reaffirm its sanctuary status. All suspects are charged with conspiracy to distribute fentanyl. 6 suspects remain outstanding, not in custody. 2.3 kilos of fentanyl, 12 kilos of suspected fentanyl and cocaine, and 6 guns were recovered. According to the DEA, 1 kilo of fentanyl can potentially kill 500,000 people. The Department of Justice press release about the arrest and fentanyl conspiracy, including one suspect being intercepted on a phone call saying their customers, quote, like the stuff that kills them. The Department of Justice is making no mention of the fact that 73% of those suspects arrested and charged are illegal aliens. They are downplaying, the Department of Justice is, that these are illegal aliens. Bill Malugin at Fox News has that 14 of the 19 arrested illegal aliens. Another reason for mass deportations. Those are the three big headlines happening right now as we start the show today. Welcome back. It is the Eric Erickson Show across the nation. Hope you guys had a great weekend. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, happy to have you. Let me reset now these three stories that have happened. They're all relatively breaking news items. I do want to get into the fall of Syria and how Iran gambled badly. All of it, it's actually the biggest story of the day. But we've got three pressing matters that have happened since the show started at the top of the hour. One, Daniel Penny's been found not guilty by the jury in New York. He is a free man. Number two, the U.S. Department of Justice has announced charges against 25 individuals, 19 of whom were arrested on Thursday. 14 of the 19 people are illegal immigrants. It's a massive fentanyl drug trafficking ring in the Northeast in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Boston is a sanctuary city. These people were all arrested in Boston, and it is a massive drug ring run 73% of the people involved, illegal aliens. The Department of Justice and the local news in Boston refusing to say that 13 of the 19 arrested were illegal aliens. Very notable that even the news media is just regurgitating DOJ talking points. Bill Malugin at Fox News was able to get the data from his sources. Last big story, a person of interest has been arrested at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania for shooting Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO. The initial report from the New York Post that broke it was that he used an ID at McDonald's. That's not the case. The New York Times provides some clarity here. A customer at the McDonald's saw the guy and thought it might be him based on his appearance, called the police. When the police got there, the person had a gun with a silencer and lots of fake IDs and other things. And one of the fake IDs, we're told from the press, matched the ID used by the gunman at the hostel in New York City. All that's happening right now. When we come back, we need to get into what's happening in Syria, the biggest story of the day. First, I need to tell you about Vision Computers. If you're looking at buying a computer for Christmas and you're worried about the transition to a new computer from an old computer, Vision can make it very easy for you. They will move all of your data over, your apps, your preferences, your documents. Everything gets moved to the new computer. And then you get their 5-star customer service, where if you ever have a question about your computer, ever have a problem, you don't know what's going on, you can call a special number, and in 15 seconds or less, they'll give you the answer. They can even remote into your computer and fix it for you. They can do email and printer support. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. Now, this is important if you're a business and you're at the end of the year and you want to make some purchases to offset tax liability. Vision is where you want to go to upgrade your technology. And again, every computer comes completely free, complimentary, their customer support. Or if you just want their customer support for your existing computer, it's just $179 a year. Call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them I sent you. You're going to save even more money. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Any one of you, any business nationwide. 404-COMPUTE. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the phone, on the show, I am a professional. But I'm also like part Louisiana, part Swede, so sometimes the tongue gets in my way. I want to talk to you about Syria. Syria is actually a very big story. I want to set the scene for you here, for me on a personal level. So you understand, I do care about these international stories. I did grow up overseas. I do think it matters way more than oftentimes Americans talk. We want to obsess about elections and what's happening in Washington, and we live in a very integrated world that we lead. And so we should care about these stories. This one in particular, you've got to care about it, and I want to explain this to you because of the coming dynamics. Syria is a very big story. When I was a kid, I had a friend named Fez. Fez was from Syria. His father worked in finance, and they were Syrian refugees as well. They lived in the United Arab Emirates, where I grew up, and Fez's grandfather had slighted the Assad regime. To their family's telling of it, which always sounded a little bit preposterous, the grandfather, also in finance, had questioned funding for a relative of the Assad regime. Didn't want to make capital available. And he was disappeared to Sednaya. Sednaya opened in 1987. So I was in 8th or 9th grade when he came to school. Sednaya was the prison of the secret police of Syria. And the Assad regime at the time, Hafez al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, was the dictator of Syria. He was the leader of the Ba'athist Party, which is the Arab Nazi Party. And he rounded up this kid's grandfather and put him in a prison where tens of thousands of people died or were killed over time. At one point, 15,000 people were massacred in this prison. And I was taking a stage in Salt Lake City on Saturday night, giving a speech at the Utah chapter of Americans for Prosperity's annual event. And I saw that Sednaya had fallen. It had been captured by the rebels. And I knew the Assad regime had come to an end before reports even came out that he had fled the country and Damascus had fallen. Now we need to go into the Wayback Machine, because this one is really important for you to understand as a country. Syria was actually a pretty expansive land. And it was a territory of the Ottoman Empire. In 1945, the Syrian Republic was founded, the first Syrian Republic, and I am reading from Wikipedia. It was French territory. Britain had Jordan. France had Syria. You will notice, by the way, here's one of your historic anomalies to pay attention to. In the world today, after the collapse of the European powers and their empires, the territories that derive from the British Empire tend to be more stable than all the others. The Spanish, the French, the German, the Italians. The British tend to be the most stable because the British actually had for all the bashing of colonialism, the British actually had a colonial department that would go in and set up governments and integrate locals into that government. And over time, they became self-governing enterprises. Even in India, the British would come in, they established some colonial rule, but then they began integrating parliamentary democracy into the lifeblood of the people. So regardless of which continent you go to on planet Earth, the former possessions of the British Empire tend to be more stable than the possessions of the French or the Spanish or anyone else. When you look at the Middle East, Britain oversaw Jordan, France oversaw Syria, the Hashemite kingdom in Jordan. There was already leadership there. The British incorporated into their rule. The French decided to carve up Syria and its territory of Iraq, and they essentially put it in the hands of a minority party, the Alawite Party. It was a very small faction, and ultimately resulted, after a series of disruption and party rule with the rise of the Ba'athist Party that had been allied with the Nazis, Hafez al-Assad took charge. He was a ruthless dictator. In 2011, the Arab Spring broke out of the Middle East. And what did Barack Obama do? Nothing. Nothing. Barack Obama misjudged the situation in the Middle East. Barack Obama and his team were sympathetic to Iran, and they wanted to rethink the Middle East. Now, there was this is part of what you don't appreciate if you're a Democrat. This is something you don't appreciate if you are in the media because your sympathies lie with the Democrats. There was a staggering level of arrogance. Now, I gotta listen. I need everybody's attention here, because those of you who are partisans who hate Barack Obama, you're going to be yes-manning, amening this, but I need you to actually separate your partisan perspective on this for actual a real object. And I am being objective, and I'm not being partisan. And I need, if it's possible for you to do that, I need you to understand what I'm saying here from a nonpartisan perspective. There was a level of academic arrogance with Barack Obama's foreign policy team. And again, I don't mean that as in a partisan way. I mean it from this vantage point. They looked on a situation in the Middle East, and they really did think, we've been doing, and this is one of the things you hear all the time, we're doing it the same way, and we're getting the same results. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. If we want different results, which is peace in the Middle East, we should rethink how we do this. We've alienated Iran. Let's now bring Iran into the mix and see if we can get peace in a way no one else did. And we'll be the heroes, and we'll have earned the affirmative action Nobel Peace Prize Barack Obama got. It was affirmative action not because he was black, but because he hated George Bush and campaigned against him. And so they wanted to give the American president, who had done spectacularly nothing, the Nobel Peace Prize. And Barack Obama was ever in search of justifying what he knew was an unjustified award of the Nobel Peace Prize. And so they thought, let's rethink the Middle East and let's go with Iran. No one else is going with Iran. We'll go with Iran. And maybe in that way, we will be able to get peace in the Middle East. And that's what they did. And it was profoundly naive, but it was a naivete preceded by the arrogance of, we will rethink this in a way none of them ever thought of, and we'll get what they couldn't get. And the problem is everyone had thought of those things and rejected those things for precisely what we're seeing now. They emboldened Iran, which funded its terror allies, which funded the Assad regime and others to go after the entities that were trying to destabilize the Assad regime, and ultimately led to October 7th and the murder of over 1,200 Jews. That's what we got from Barack Obama. And sadly, the Biden regime is similar in arrogance of the thinking of Barack Obama, except they have one other thing, and that is Joe Biden, who has been profoundly wrong about everything in foreign policy for 50 years. One of the genius ideas that Joe Biden had about Iraq that he strongly advocated for was divided it into 3 regions. It may sound good to you until you understand one of the regions would have been a Kurdish region, and the Turks, who are supposedly our allies, despise the Kurds and wish to repress them. The Kurds hate the Turks. And the way Joe Biden wanted to divide Iraq would have led to perpetual war in the Middle East. And everyone understood this, including the Obama team. But Joe Biden was insistent on his beliefs, and he was wrong. So now we have the Ba'athist regime in Syria, the Arab Nazis. Civil war breaks out in 2011. Barack Obama plays his hand badly. He emboldens Iran, which props up Syria. The Russians have a naval base on the Mediterranean Sea in Syria. They come to the aid of the Assad regime. The whole thing begins to collapse over the last 2 weeks. It rapidly undid itself. What was the old Ernest Hemingway line in one of his books about how somebody went bankrupt slowly and then suddenly? Slowly and then all at once. The Assad regime is gone. Now, here's the good thing. The last of the Arab Nazi Party, the Ba'athist Party, the Iraq and Syrian Ba'athist parties are no more. It's good. The problem is Obama and Biden in particular, but to a degree Trump as well, had a very hard time navigating the different rebel factions in Syria. We have about 900 American troops there that have been allied with one of the factions. They happen to be a minority faction. The largest factions are tied to ISIS and to Al-Qaeda, but mostly to ISIS. They are terrorists who have taken over Syria. What we are going to get with the fall of Assad might actually be worse. I don't know. There are a lot of people who want to tell you confidently they know what's coming. I don't know. And I don't think anyone who will tell you confidently what's coming actually knows either. What is coming is going to be probably for a time more deeply destabilizing than the Assad regime, except for Israel. Israel has now, for the first time since the 1970s, since 1973, Israel has crossed into Syrian territory to build a buffer zone because the terrorists captured Damascus. And what did they say? They would march through Jerusalem to Mecca, meaning they want to expand the war in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia now has every reason to be allied with Israel. They trust Donald Trump in a way they don't trust Joe Biden. Donald Trump is coming back to power at the perfect time, put it to you that way. Bashar al-Assad is now in Moscow. There are two things I need you to take away from here real quick. This is very important. The Russians hedged their bets on the Assad regime, and they've now probably lost their only naval base on the Mediterranean Sea. They have lost a military alliance, and they blew a lot of money in Syria. Iran had a road from Tehran straight into Lebanon via Iraq and Syria. Iran no longer controls a trade route into Lebanon. All of this comes because of the October 7th attack. Iran gambled. They took a big risk. They trained Hamas, and now Hamas is gone, Hezbollah is gone, and Syria is gone. All three of these are the proxy armies that Iran used to fight Israel. Iran, in allowing, sanctioning, and training the October 7th attack, has now seen the collapse of all three of its proxies against Israel. Iran gambled badly, and so did Vladimir Putin. I cannot emphasize to you enough that Syria was a big regime ally to the Russians. They had a warm water port that could not be blocked by the Turks in Syria. That's now gone. This is a major realignment of the Middle East. I don't know how it's going to go. My suspicion is it's about to get even worse than it was for a time. The Americans have a chance to lead here and to structure some level of peace. And this is very important for all of you who are isolationists to understand. Either we will involve ourselves or the Chinese will involve themselves. And we will get nothing good out of this if China involves itself in this. Xi Jinping wants to be a power broker globally, not just in Asia. He wants to be involved in this. And I will tell you, we have the opportunity here because most of those involved are our allies right now, Israel and Saudi Arabia. And they're hoping and praying that Donald Trump will involve himself in some way that will lead to greater stability for them. When you have a group of terrorists who have taken over Syria saying they want to march through Jerusalem to Mecca, Saudi Arabia needs Donald Trump to be involved in this. The world needs American leadership in this. Doesn't mean we need to commit troops. It doesn't mean we need to police the world, but it does mean we need to have a concrete plan on what to do about the new leadership in Syria. It's going to matter greatly. What also matters greatly is the banks around the world that seem to be just discombobulated right now. And in this country, mortgage rates still very high. Swiss America has been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years, and they've been warning people about a secret war on cash for some time. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war, you need to listen. Got a free report to give you. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. Swiss America can educate you on protecting your assets in this report, The Secret War on Cash. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save you on your retirement and finances. What you do to get a free copy is call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. The All-Out War on Cash includes digital forms of currency. It's growing. It's spreading. Get the Secret War on Cash report completely free for my listeners. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. The report is completely free. Just mention Eric, E-R-I-C-K, when you call or text 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan, wherever you are nationwide. First Liberty can help your business. If you're buying a building, building a building, growing your business, First Liberty would love to help you. You can reach out to them at firstlibertyga.com. Firstlibertyga.com. Let me go to the phones here. Eric in Edgewater, Florida. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. I love the Rio Linda reference. Rush has changed the world on this.
Yes.
I just wanted to join in on Syria for a minute, and I wonder if the people that write for Biden stop and think about what they said in the past, in fact, the recent past. 2 quick points. They say that Putin and Trump are good buddies and they love each other. Meanwhile, Biden's upset that Putin's buddy got overthrown. So right there. And then Biden just said that, 3,000 people were butchered. Well, he didn't care that Hezbollah butchered 1,200 people. So do these people even stop and listen to themselves? I wonder about your take on this.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you point that out. It is so transactional, it seems, when it comes to this administration and how they handle these things and who they're upset about killing people. You know, Biden, I would be remiss. He did address the nation. It was kind of surprising.
What happened in the Middle East? After 13 years of civil war in Syria, more than half a century of brutal authoritarian rule by Bashar Assad and his father before him, rebel forces have forced Assad to resign his office and flee the country. We're not sure where he is, but there's word that he's in Moscow. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen.
I mean, it was nice of him to address the nation about this, but he says he wants to send some money. Who are we sending money to? That's part of the problem here. Who are you sending money to in Syria right now? We do have a group of rebels that our special forces have been helping, and they're there on the ground, about 900 American servicemen. We've mostly been stopping them from being eliminated by the Russians. There's a major change in dynamic happening in Syria right now. Learning who the players are and who best to proceed is going to be complicated, but I frankly trust the team that Donald Trump's got around him with Marco Rubio and the like, and Mike Waltz, and I do anybody, including Jake Sullivan, who you will recall a week before October 7th said the Middle East was the most peaceful it had been in a generation. These people don't need to be in charge, and they're about to be out of power. That's a good thing.